nitaihifadhi, nitailinda na kuitetea katiba ya Kenya kwa mujibu wa sheria iliyowekwa. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu unisaidie.
Against a dense atmosphere of wrongdoing, Mwai Kibaki hurriedly saw himself president at an event that competed with a fast-setting nightfall. Events followed in quick succession.
You and I know what has happened in the last election.
Where ODM had won, we did not hear anybody complaining.
If you doubt us, you know where to go.
A chaotic tallying, muddled figures, an oath, and then eruption of violence.
It was quite clear that there was interference by the state.
Former Cabinet Minister Franklin Bate was with Raila Odinga during the tallying and after the announcement of the results.
Yeah, that Kivuitu man, the one who was saying the results are being cooked somewhere. And he made a very good statement that the results are being cooked somewhere. It was so bad to come out of him, but he made it. So he knew it was being cooked. We stood there kidogo. We didn't have space on the other side. So some of us were standing behind the electoral body. Me, I was next to Kivuitu and another Ambassador Tumwa. I was sitting next to, I was standing behind the two. I was telling, whispering to Chuck Tumwa, you are a fine man. Give us fine results. Even if the fine results are us losing, so long as they are fine.
And we knew what was going on. They were determined. They knew they've lost. They knew they will use the exercise of the police and they will shut us down.
Then all of a sudden, 2 columns of GSU started coming from my right and then doing a funnel. And then the electoral body officials, members, commissioners, were beckoned to stand up. And then they were told to walk. Then they walked through the 2 lines. One line on this side, another line on this side. They walked through. And they were escorted as such up to the upper room. After that was done, we were told to vacate KICC. And they were ready to beat us up. So we vacated.
We have had so many conspiracies and plans of how to finish our leaders. So in our understanding, we were more concerned and worried about our presidential candidate.
Lights were switched off at the KICC, and what followed was the shutdown of independent broadcasters. The chairman of the then Electoral Commission, ECK, the late Samuel Kivuitu, was escorted by state police to State House, where then Chief Justice Evans Gisheru had already been summoned to conduct the sunset rituals.
Only KBC was left to go up. The entire press corps was violently pushed out because they tried to resist. But ourselves, we didn't resist. We just walk away to go and wait for the results at the Pentagon House. But they were flushed out by force. I even remember some of them were injured and some of their equipment was spoiled.
The antagonistic situation that could not be managed by government of the day at that time will tell you that Raila somehow had good numbers. If he didn't win, as people could want to claim, but he had good numbers that can convince someone that Raila won.
Look at the number of MPs we got. Look at the number of regions that supported Raila Odinga. Almost the entire country.
At that time, Kenyans eagerly waited for Kivuitu's voice.
We didn't take long. At Pentagon House, watching those screens we had fixed up there. The announcement came. Kivuitu announcing the winner is Mwai Kibaki. The entire Pentagon House was into into mourning. They simply broke down. Some of them even collapsed. I mean, I remember I had to be involved in first aid on some of them, because that was the last thing to expect. That was the last thing to expect, because that election was won by the Orange team.
How was Raila then, I think, when the results were announced?
He simply stood up, walked into his car, went away. The one who, I mean, a large number, I don't want to mention the guys who broke, but they broke down. Yeah. William Ruto, again, also walked away. Henry Koskei walked away. So I was left, if I may say now on my part, I was left with Ruth Odinga to kind of pacify people, comfort people. We took time. Some of them were crying profusely. We took time to ask them, there is a future, there is hope.
So the moment you are not respecting that procedure and the tenets of democracy, where you have time to swear in the president, where you have also time to do all those state decorations until the time the president is sworn in, of course it casts doubt. And of course the speculation has remained up to today, even in Raila supporters, that Raila won in 2007. But of course, you know, the ultimate decision lied with the IEBC at that time.
We thought Kivuitu was in charge as chairman, only to realize that later that I think the pressure was too much, and maybe one would understand dealing with an incumbent is not easy. He has the instruments of power. He can intimidate, blackmail, and frustrate you into submission. And probably Kivuitu cracked at one point. He was not strong enough to hold his ground.
The events that literally set the country on fire. The 2007 election had preceded polarized campaigns that projected President Mwai Kibaki headed for a big loss after losing large parts of the country that had propelled him to the House on the Hill 5 years earlier. Then provinces that did not support his bid for a second term felt cheated by the results and erupted in violence. Disagreements between Odinga and Mwai Kibaki started immediately. The former Odaya MP was elected Kenya's third president, and the NARC government formed in 2003. The Raila Odinga team felt cheated in the power-sharing arrangement after helping Kibaki trounce Moi's choice for the presidency.
The MOU was very clear, and I was in that night discussion where who will become the prime minister. And there was a fight between Saitoti and Raila Odinga. Yes. And it was so bad until Raila Odinga gave up and said, it's not about being a prime minister, it's about getting Moi out. And because that was the rallying call, everybody submitted to Raila Odinga being the nominee of LDP to be the prime minister. That secret deal was there. Now, the mistake we did as politicians and leaders for this country is the politics of deceit. We cheat each other.
Power got into the heads of some people, and they started behaving funny, you know, excluding others in decision making, not meeting the agreements that we had agreed on.
Backstabbing. These are the things that is haunting the country. And that's why after Kibaki was sworn in, the gates were closed. And the gates were closed by one person called Matere Kereri, the controller of State House. These are the new operators.
Nitatenda kazi zangu za urais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Upon assuming the presidency in 2003, Kibaki's wing transformed and departed from the pre-election pact. Instead of the coalition figureheads, the new government acquired new power bearers, a squad drawn entirely from the Mount Kenya region. It included Kiraitu Murungi, Christopher Murungaru, Matere Kereri, David Mwiraria, and Francis Mdaura.
They disowned the promise after we delivered them. It's like you put a ladder for a monkey to go and climb and get the bananas. The minute he gets the bananas, he throws the ladder down. Yeah? So that was actually the downfall of the NARC government. That is where now the crisis started. So Raila had to swallow it because he had no choice. We tolerated it. It was infighting within government. The opposition of KANU was not felt because there was opposition within.
That was what killed NARC. Otherwise, NARC was a wonderful dream that would have taken this country very far. I wish NARC did not die.
Within months, the National Rainbow Coalition dream was dead, with the once mighty NARC reduced to a single-engine government. The NARC collapse was formalized 2 years later with a referendum that pitted former allies Mwai Kibaki against Raila Odinga and NK against LDP. Kibaki was trounced in the referendum.
We go to a referendum again with the arrogance that the leaders had. It was just bulldozed the way they wanted it because it's government. And that's why the referendum failed.
And we beat a sitting president who fired us from government immediately after the referendum.
You were then?
Yes, I was then an assistant minister for tourism and wildlife.
And the momentum of the referendum continued beyond the referendum. That's why in 2007, ODM was formed, yeah, and ODM won the elections.
The 2007 election was a rerun of the 2005 referendum, and the early results placed Mwai Kibaki and Raila Odinga where they were in 2005, Kibaki losing and Raila winning. And when the official results failed to confirm what appeared obvious, the country erupted.
To put it bluntly, nobody will ever be able to say who won or who lost this election. It was simply too bad before any results got to the KICC.
Most of the voting went on quite well in a lot of the polling stations across the nation. But when it came to the transmission of the results, that's where the problems, started. And some of them were done at the local level between polling stations and, constituency centers or other regional centers, or as they were being transmitted to Kenyatta International Conference.
He had the best chance then. All of us were in ODM. I was in ODM. He had nearly the whole country, Rift Valley, Western, Coast, Nyanza, the whole of the Muslim and the pastoralist area.
His moment was 2007. That was his moment. And Kenya was ready for a non-Kikuyu president. Now, a combination of factors don't favor him becoming president.
But Odinga was to work with a man who he claimed had stolen his presidency. Kenya was to have its first ever grand coalition government engraved in a PISA code, witnessed by iconic figures in Africa, led by the chief mediator, former UN Secretary General, the late Kofi Annan. He was named Prime Minister with Kibaki President.
There was also the recognition of Raila Odinga being the potential Prime Minister even before changing the law. Remember when riders were sent to Pentagon House and the riders were given to Raila Odinga and they escorted Raila Odinga to Harambee House. Unfortunately, fortunately, I was in that car. I was with Raila Odinga in the car. And we came out to Harambee House. Unfortunately, we didn't have a formal appointment with President Kibaki. When we reached there, Kibaki refused to see us. I told Raila Odinga, maybe we don't deserve to be given the riders before the deal. But Raila Odinga felt he was entitled to those riders. I started becoming disappointed because it was not about riders that we fight to be in leadership. It was about the people of Kenya. From that time, we knew we had a raw deal.
If he was focused on power, then there would have been no deal, because the position that we took at the beginning was that we had won the elections and Raila should be declared the President of the Republic of Kenya. And the worst scenario for us was a repeat election. Worst because we only two scenarios. Raila's announced, and our second option was that we should go back for elections. It was necessary to go into that deal because the entire clout of the international community, either as expressed through the African Union, the United Nations, and the United States of America, European Union, all of them wanted Raila, to accept a deal.
But the Grand Coalition was not an easy marriage, complete with echoes of the MOU failure 5 years earlier, as President Kibaki held on to key ministries.
If Kibaki and the PNU behaved properly and accepted the terms and the position of the Prime Minister as set out in the law and in the Constitution, things would have gone a different direction. Kenya would never had a situation where an election still becomes a problem.
Despite the wrangles, the Grand Coalition government went on to deliver growth and significant political developments, including the promulgation of what was considered the most progressive constitution in 2010. With Kibaki heading into retirement, the Grand Coalition government acted as Raila's launching pad for the next election. But the dynamics were shifting, and none so dramatic than those occasioned by the International Criminal Court indictments of then Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila's one-time sidekick, William Ruto.
And I will say, by the way, that all these things, had Raila handled it properly, had Raila been a bit patient, Raila was going, we did not have a candidate. Raila was winning.
The ICC case and the eviction of Mau encroachers and the Mau forest further strained relations between Raila and Ruto, with Ruto allies accusing Raila of abandoning Ruto at the hour of need.
He doesn't, at the same time, he doesn't keep friends and allies. When he became the Prime Minister, he started again eating into his allies. So he lost William Ruto, he lost Charity Ngilu, he lost Aden Duale, he lost Charles Keter, he lost Najib Balala, he lost Musalia Mudavadi. So again, he came back to where he was in 2002 as NDP.
People join hands during elections for various reasons. Of course, the main reason is to get to power, and there are various expectations as they join different coalitions or join hands with different people.
Every politician, me included, we join politics to form government. Nobody joins politics to be in the opposition. So when we joined Raila Odinga, led by William Ruto, many of us, we wanted to form government. So we got half government. But in that half government, Raila Odinga and some of his close allies started undermining William Ruto and preferred Musalia Mudavadi.
Immediately after 2007 general election, I think the people who wanted to stop Raila through whichever means immediately embarked on a mission to disorganize ODM. And I will tell you that disorganization was so intense and so well-resourced. I remember during those days we were being told if you wanted an envelope, it was usually 100,000 every weekend. There was a place where you would go to pick it. And the main aim was to disorganize ODM.
And by the time the elections were staged in 2013, ODM's Pentagon was no more. Ruto, Ngilu and Najib Balala teamed up with Uhuru Kenyatta to form the Jubilee Coalition. Musalia Mudavadi vied for the presidency on a UDF ticket, and Raila Odinga found warmth in the CORD coalition, together with former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka and Ford Kenya leader Moses Wetangula. The election was won by Uhuru Kenyatta, with Raila Odinga coming second.